Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalrin. In today's video, we're going to be talking about rogues and 3 specs of rogues. We're going to be asking the question, which spec is the best for PvP, and which spec you should play. In today's video, I'm not going to give you the answer, which spec you should play, because that should be honestly up to you. The spec that I play is Combat, but honestly, Combat, Subtlety, and Assassination are all 3 great specs for PvP. In today's video, even though you might feel like it might be biased, since my channel is about combat rogues, I'm going to break down the facts and faults of each spec and discuss about my personal experiences playing these specs. The first spec we'll be talking about is Subtlety. Subtlety spec is currently a very competitive spec in arena scene on World of Warcraft and Warlords of Draenor. It is a very challenging spec and it puts out a lot of damage. It's very viable in PvP, both battlegrounds and arenas. From my personal experiences of Subtlety, I noticed it has a very high burst, so if you like to burst people down and do one-shots, this is a spec for you. Subtlety's playstyle is complex, which I actually see as a good thing. I actually prefer complexity to a class, and I think it makes playing a certain class more fun and more challenging. It really separates the good players from really good players, and I feel like, there's always more room to grow, more room to learn. Subtlety is the tricks of all trades when it comes to crowd control with the ability of Shadow Dance. Subtlety is just the most unparalleled spec when it comes to all of rogue CC, as you're able to use saps without being in stealth, you're able to silence your opponents on demand and get off a full stun without having to spend any combo points, but simply energy. Subtlety is very stealthy, and I found to my playstyle it's very tactical. It is the best spec if you really enjoy plotting your moves and then executing them, and then seeing your enemies bursted down into flames. I guess flames would be the burst. One of the negatives I saw about Subtlety from my personal playing of it, I felt it had low sustain in damage. You really do get a lot of uptime and damage once you get the burst up, but keeping the sustain going is not as easy. It also feels very clunky to me because of its complex playstyle, where you have to get behind your opponent to really get those backstabs off, and you have to put your bleeds on opponents, you have to manage your slice and dice to make sure you have energy rolling, and you have to energy pool. There's a lot of mechanics that fit into Subtlety and actually playing the spec, and that is something that I'm just not personally good at. And I'm completely fine with it, although I am, whenever I play the spec, I have enthusiasm to learn and try to get better at it. So Subtlety is definitely a really good PvP spec, and it's very viable, and it's very competitive, and it's a spec you should definitely check out. The next spec we'll be talking about is Assassination, a very good BG spec, not as high competitively as a PvP arena spec currently, but give Assassination a patch or two and maybe it will shine just as bright as Subtlety. What's fun about Assassination is it's a dot-based spec for rogues. It's actually very more dot-based than that of Subtlety, which applies bleeds, but Assassination can spread those dots. You actually feel like you're putting some serious damage over time on your enemies, which is a lot of fun. Assassination has really good sustain and really good burst damage, both come together. They're not particularly high maintenance in burst or really good at sustain. They have decent and very viable good burst and good sustain. Also, Assassination is a really awesome one-shot burst, which I made a video on, and I have a link down in the description below. Credit to Sati for finding out how to use this burst ability using the Night Stalker, Death from Above, Mark for Death, and Vendetta perk for Assassination, as well as a 4-piece bonus for Assassination. What I found as a negative towards Assassination, which is probably its flaw in arenas, is Vendetta, its massive cooldown, is very limiting. As you mark one target, that one target knows you have them marked, that one target knows they're going to be taking damage, therefore they may want to run away from you or get defensives out or maybe bubble, or if they are a mage they'll ice block it off. So Vendetta forces you to attack one person where you're dealing to that one person the most amount of damage. If Vendetta was a little bit more easygoing of an ability, and you could swap it from one person to another, kind of like how Warlocks would swap their dots from one person to another, maybe then it will be a little bit more viable. Also, I feel like as Assassination, I'm always fishing for RNG pressure outside of my cooldowns. While Assassination has good burst and good sustain, it doesn't have incredible burst, now that it has an incredible sustain. Half the time when I'm, going through my rotation and trying to put pressure on an opponent, I don't ever feel like I'm putting all that much pressure. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, so I can never figure out where is the sweet spot where I know I'll be putting pressure, therefore I know what my next move will be. So I'm kind of just like guessing all the time while playing the spec. Last but not least, the spec that I've been maining since Mists of Pandaria, where it was pretty much unplayable, Combat. Some of the things I can tell you about Combat, not as a bias, but just from personal views of how I watch other people play it in arenas and battlegrounds, combat has really good sustained damage. It has probably one of the best sustained damage I've seen in the game so far, thanks to Warlords of Draenor, much better than what Mr. Pandari brought. As a really free-flowing playstyle whenever I play combat, you know, you just reveal and strike a guy, alright, cool, I'll just auto-attack him for a bit, send us a strike, okay, let's throw him in a stun and put some more damage into him. As a it doesn't have any position requirements, it doesn't have any dot up times, really just, you just build combo points, use eviscerates, stun your opponents, and maintain slice and dice if you really want to. It has really good burst, and I'm not saying like high burst like Subtlety, but it has a really decent burst once you get to deep insight and killing spree, although a burst is a little limiting since you do have to achieve deep insight and then have killing spree available and trinkets if you can get them, but it does have really good burst and it's really easy to execute. It's just one button ability. Talking about that one button ability, killing spree is awesome. It's a very unique ability in the game. It allows you to chase your opponent while dealing massive amounts of damage to them with master procs and poison procs and attack bonuses. Honestly, it's just a lot of fun of an ability, and I like it that it's just one button ability. Combat has very simple rotation, as I said earlier. It goes with its free-flowing playstyle, so I never feel like I'm having to think too much of what I am trying to do as a rogue, but more like how can I impact the battle right now? How can I impact this arena? How can I impact this BG? And I'm not really having to manage anything of resources that heavily. But the negatives of combat are the lack of on-demand damage. You do have to work off of insight and build your damage up from shallow to medium to deep, and that damage can be seen from a mile away, but the fact that you have to work that damage up guarantees you that you're not going to have immediate uptime burst like that of Subtlety or Assassination. Once you pop a cooldown, bam, you have damage. And with combat, you have to learn how to build it with insight, as I said, as well as a little bit of energy management. A lot of people seem to be struggling with energy management, so that is something to get used to compared to Sub or Assassination, because there's no uptime on a buff or a debuff that you have to keep up with. It's just something you have to learn from the play in the spec and adjusting to its energy management and all the other things that make up combat. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and hopefully you found it very informative in figuring out which spec you want to play and maybe even main in Warlords of Draenor. I'm still definitely going to be playing each spec in Battlegrounds, but I am going to be main in combat. I was thinking of swapping from it ever since it took away our 8-second stun, but playing the spec again in arenas with the 8-second stun nerf, getting my 2k, I just can't let it go now. It's just too much of a fun spec and I have too much memory with it, and I enjoy playing it a little bit too much compared to the other specs, so this channel is still going to be a combat rogue guide. But if you guys do have questions about Assassination or Subtlety, I am happy to make videos for you guys and provide information. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. My name is Dalrin. Hopefully you guys enjoy your rogues in Warlords of Draenor, and I'll see you guys in the next video.